Super Mario Kart will always be an important game for unleashing the horrors of Mario Kart upon the world for the very first time, and establishing many of the core elements of the series, but it's also a game you don't hear very much about anymore. It makes sense, Mario Kart 8 essentially became the definitive game of the series on account of the sheer volume of content alone, and the original game filters out a lot of people just because of how old it is. But I think there's still a lot of value in that game because it plays so differently to any of those future titles. It's way more difficult, and it's not completely nonsensical difficulty either, even though it might feel like it in the moment. Compared to every game after this, which were mostly incrementally better versions of what already was, this one stands out at a fundamental level, and even though I don't always enjoy it as much as the later titles, I do appreciate it a lot, which is why I got a really good ROM hack today. It's called Super Mario Kart Horizons, and it's a whole new game with 20 new tracks to master or embarrass yourself on, whichever you prefer. Having played through every single one of the 20 new tracks, I am impressed at the visual direction of this game. Even though it's on even footing with the original on a purely technical level, the actual course designs, the textures, and color palettes are very distinct from the original. That's probably the most surprising thing about it. I would not have expected it to be this visually distinct. Even though there are thematic similarities, it still feels very different. I love this underground icy cave with these scrolling background layers of animated waterfalls. It just looks really cool. The game didn't show any dialogue or expositional context to suggest this, but judging from the visual direction in some of the levels, I almost wonder if at least part of the game takes place in some kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland, with poisoned soil and radioactive water. I mean, doesn't this look like the kind of thing you'd see in the back half of a 40-hour RPG when the villain destroys the Earth or whatever? The sprite work for the characters and obstacles has also been updated, which is very nice. I don't know if it's a controversial opinion or not, but the original sprites looked kinda goofy. Then again, Mario looked goofy a lot of the time before GameCube came out. One thing I like is how often courses will have different branching pathways, which wasn't uncommon in the original, but I noticed it a lot more frequently in this one. It adds a layer of replayability, where players who really want to get good at the game will want to lab out the optimal pathways on each level where it applies. In terms of difficulty, it'll definitely keep you on your toes, possibly even more so than the original. The game is full of devious turns and bottomless pits with no guardrails whatsoever. You will be falling off and bumping into shit like a drunken Goomba with no peripheral vision. Don't even get me started on this game's Rainbow Road either. This is some evil bastard shit right here. Horizons is the first time I realized the value of actually using the brakes. In the original game, I'd never get off the accelerator and I kept running into walls like a dumbass. Turns out, slowing down to do things more precisely actually kinda works from time to time. Nobody knew this before me. All the new levels and graphical direction is really great to see, but really, I'm more impressed by the music. The soundtrack is entirely replaced, even down to the individual character's end of race theme. That's very impressive, and even more impressive is that it actually sounds pretty nice. This is a ROM hack with a lot to offer, and I think it's definitely one of those no-brainer type ROM hacks, where if you're a fan of the original, you're already a fan of this mod, whether you realize it or not. And if you're the type to play games on real hardware, you're in luck, because from what I understand, this game is in fact console compatible. So if you're about that Super Nintendo life, that's very good news for you. Otherwise, that's all for today, but remember to come back tomorrow, or else you'll be doomed to live a life of roguishness. It'll make sense tomorrow, but for now, Merry Christmas, cousins!